Greetings, everyone, and welcome. I'm Bob Gorel, Executive Director of the Maryland Interagency Commission on School Construction. I will be joined in presenting this webinar by IEC members Alex Donahue, David Fries, as well as Clarence Felder from the Department of General Services. Today, it's our privilege to present foundational information to the public and to Maryland stakeholders that we believe will strengthen the understanding of many concepts that will be discussed at length in the upcoming meetings of the Work Group on Assessment and Funding of K-12 School Facilities. This webinar is the third of four and describes why and how Maryland is measuring the effectiveness of maintenance in our public K-12 school facilities in order to maximize the utility of those facilities and stretch Marylanders' tax dollars as far as they can be stretched. We'd like to take questions during this presentation. If you look to the right of your screen, you'll see a white box. Questions will be visible there, and we'll try to answer these questions with the content of the presentation as we go. If we don't get to all of them, we will pick them up at the end. We'll, of course, try to consolidate similar questions. And we'll continue to answer questions up until the 1 p.m. mark, where we will have a hard stop. If we don't get questions after we've taken a number and we have dead air space, we'll still stay on the line for 2 or 3 minutes and then announce that we will sign off. So thank you again for being here. Teachers and the public are quick to remind us how important facilities are when they don't work. This is appropriate, and we want to prevent school facility failures, and so we ask a lot of why questions to get to the root causes. Facility maintenance is very complex. It's not easy, and accordingly not cheap, but it can be quite cost-effective if planned and implemented correctly. In today's webinar, we are discussing some of these opportunities. When building systems such as roofs, walls, lighting, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning are not functioning reliably, learning cannot take place. And in some instances, facility issues can even expose our children to unsafe conditions. A facility requires constant tending to work properly. And the larger or more complex a facility is, the more tending is required, and the more expensive the facility will be to own. Facilities, like almost anything built by people, require continual management and upkeep. School facilities pose an additional management burden in that the requirements are constantly changing, such as variations in populations, or revisions required to support programmatic changes. Enrollment changes, either growth or decline, have to be managed, and an unused facility costs just about the same to maintain and operate as a fully utilized facility in constant use. Even a mothballed facility has a cost. With proper care, the functional lifespan of a facility can be 50 years or more. Facility ownership is therefore multi-generational. Not only because each facility will serve multiple generations, but also because facility ownership is never ending. The champions involved in the acquisition of a school facility are usually long gone and unaware of the struggles to sustain that facility decades later. So long as there are new generations of children and the expectation that they be educated, there will always be a need for school facilities. We must properly first plan and then care for these complex and expensive capital assets. The two guiding principles for facility stewardship are educational sufficiency, such that every seat in every classroom provides a sufficient learning environment, and fiscal sustainability, so that we can afford to keep every learning environment sufficient over time. Maintenance is ongoing and an investment in the future.
You have seen this model of the 4 major phases in the never-ending life cycle of a school facility: planning, design, construction, and operation and maintenance. In today's webinar, we focus on maintenance because maintenance and operations costs together represent more than half of the total cost of owning a school facility. Effective maintenance is essential to achieving fiscal sustainability and is linked over time to planning. An effective maintenance program provides not only functional and safe learning environments, but should provide continuous data for planning so that the facility's portfolio's owner can constantly improve its management of the portfolio. Planning and maintenance are the two bookends of good facility stewardship. They are ongoing over the life of the facility, and they are essential to fiscal sustainability. Maintenance is so powerful because it's essential to getting a full expected lifespan out of so many parts of a facility and to ensuring that every learning space remains educationally sufficient. Maintenance is also essential to ensuring the resiliency of Maryland's critical infrastructure because education directly supports economic competitiveness, and K-12 facilities often support disaster relief efforts. Our school facilities are unquestionably critical infrastructure.
Maintenance is the work required to keep a facility, plant, building, structure, ground facility, utility system, or other real property in such condition that it may fully functional and continuously utilized for its expected lifespan, for its intended purpose, and its maximum energy efficiency. Said another way, maintenance is the work required to fully support the original intended purpose and function over the time expected of the school facility, which typically is about 30 years before the first renewal or major renovation is needed. There are two types of maintenance: routine maintenance and capital maintenance. Many people understand the concept of routine maintenance. However, not many understand the concept of capital maintenance, which is one of the largest costs of facility ownership and so is generally underfunded. Proper maintenance includes capital maintenance. Owners must plan for and be able to afford replacement of many of a facility's building systems over time. For instance, if we want our facilities to last 50 years or more before replacement, a 4-ply, 20-year roof will need to be replaced twice. At the current average of $30 per square foot, the cost of this building system alone represents 15% of the original cost of the construction, which today is about $395 per square foot. Then there is lighting, ventilation, air conditioning, heating, windows, floor and wall finishes, parking lots, doors, locks, playing fields, and all the many building systems of a facility, all of which will require replacement during the expected life of a facility. Foundations and structures are the exception, as they generally can last 100 years or more, or twice the minimum expected lifespan of 50 years, and 3 times the typical 30-year period between renewal or major renovation generally necessary to preserve full functionality and operational efficiencies. Capital maintenance is defined as major repair, alteration, and replacement of systems, equipment, finishes, and components, including their removal and disposal. So capital maintenance covers the cost of replacement of everything that reaches the end of its life, including equipment and furniture. Funding from the sale of bonds is normally restricted to those items that will have an expected life that is longer than the retirement period of the bond. Although some furniture or equipment may not meet this test, this does not mean that they will not need to be replaced over the life of a facility. Unfortunately, the older a facility is, the greater will be the need for replacement or renewal of building system components and fixtures and furniture. Replacing building systems when needed will not only sustain the functional reliability and extend the useful life of the facility, but will also keep down the cost of routine maintenance. It is noteworthy that capital maintenance is an important job creator. Vertical construction, such as the construction or capital repair of school facilities, create more than 14 direct jobs per $1 million spent, while horizontal construction, such as roads, create only 9 direct jobs per 1 million spent. Routine maintenance is what most people visualize when considering maintenance. Routine maintenance is defined as preventive, predictive, and emergent unscheduled tasks and repairs required to ensure that a facility functions according to its design, as well as for its expected lifespan. Routine maintenance includes scheduled inspections, record keeping, equipment servicing, replacement of lamps and filters, replacements of failed equipment components such as motors, pumps, and switches, responding to calls for emergency repairs, patching holes, and repairing furniture and fixtures. In our own lives, we drive a car for weeks or months without thinking about maintenance, until the car breaks down, that is. Yet, know that when we change our car's engine oil regularly, we can get 150,000 miles out of the engine instead of perhaps 60,000 when we don't change the oil regularly. The cost of those regular oil changes equals 2 cents per mile. If we skip the oil changes, we are likely going to end up spending 4 times as much per mile for a replacement engine, likely going to the end of spending 4 times as much per mile for a replacement engine to get the same 150,000 miles out of the car. Which would you rather do? These same principles apply to a school facilities, as for example, when the heating system has stopped working because it was run too early, failure due to a lack of routine maintenance. This model, similar to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, indicates levels of maintenance that we can aspire to achieve. Good maintenance through a combination of appropriate capital and routine maintenance is directly related to facilities condition that can be reported using the Facility Condition Index, and that we will discuss further in the next webinar, Measuring and Calculating a Deficiency Score for a Facility. The Facility Condition Index, or FCI, is a measure that reports the percentage of life that has been depleted of each major building system of a facility, or aggregated to represent score for an entire facility. The lower the FCI percentage and 0 FCI is brand new, the better the condition and accordingly the functional reliability. The FCI is very useful for predicting reliability, and the higher the FCI, the closer the building system or facility is to its end of expected life. How it is used pragmatically is fact mostly to ensure reliability. For example, a newspaper company might require that its printer, which it depends upon for income, to be maintained to a very low FCI as compared to the facility which the printer is housed within. Another example is the Pentagon or hospitals, which require entire facilities to have a low FCI because they must be reliably functional as intended all of the time. While we like to think that our schools should be as reliable as the Pentagon, we currently cannot afford the necessary capital expenditures by which building systems and equipment are replaced well in advance of possible failure. In the pyramid of types of routine maintenance, these are the top 2 levels. At least in the foreseeable future for our school facilities, we need to concentrate on advancing our foundational routine maintenance effectiveness. We must focus on achieving and measure too effectiveness of preventive maintenance and aspire to condition-based maintenance. We cannot afford to be at the reactive maintenance level.
Reactive maintenance, which is fixing things after they have broken, may be cheap in the short term, but is expensive in the long run. To achieve financial affordability, preventative maintenance
is the minimum level of effectiveness where we must operate our schools. The graphic on the slide depicts the various cycles of reactive maintenance. When effective level of preventative maintenance is not maintained, more failures occur and reactive maintenance increases. This diverts scarce resources to temporary repairs to just get the system working, and will eventually leave preventative maintenance underfunded. This can become a vicious cycle. As reactive maintenance increase, more temporary and repeat repairs are required. Staff morale sinks, and any standards of maintenance best practices are dropped and forgotten. Once we slip into reactive maintenance, it can become a death spiral for facilities. Reactive maintenance, or waiting until the system fails to do any maintenance, will necessarily waste some of the system's lifespan and therefore a significant piece of the investment that the system put in place. There simply isn't a way to get the full 50 or more years of potential utility out of a school facility if we don't maintain its extended life to the fullest and replace certain systems. Insufficient capital spending will also lead to too much reactive maintenance. As building systems age significantly past their expected life, preventive maintenance is less effective and failures will increase. Good maintenance is a balanced and well-planned combination of capital and routine maintenance, and is necessary not only for ensuring educational sufficiency, but also for achieving fiscal sustainability. Good maintenance must be viewed at the facility level and on the portfolio level. Preventative maintenance is the range of actions that slow the deterioration of a building system. These actions include scheduled inspections to measure wear and identifying the developing problems, replacing fluids, filters, belts, and other consumable parts, and repairing or replacing components before they cause damage to other parts of the system. The effect of preventive maintenance on the lifespan of a building system can be huge. According to one industry source, good preventive maintenance versus reactive maintenance over a 20-year period can cut the total life cycle cost of ownership of that roof in half, according to RSI magazine. When roofs fail, there is a consequential damage to ceilings, light fixtures, structures, and even severe health issues related to air quality. When an educational space is not sufficient so that teaching and learning can occur, the space must be closed to education, and the cost is immeasurable. This is particularly relevant to us here in Maryland because we have many existing roofs approaching the end of their expected lifespans. There is no way to maintain usable facilities without putting the necessary capital maintenance. Appropriate preventative maintenance follows a planned schedule that are largely based upon manufacturers' recommendations. A preventative maintenance, or PM schedule, is created for each building system within a facility that details the maintenance activities to be performed over time. A PM schedule can and should be adjusted to take into account the accrual condition of the building systems as determined throughout condition assessments. This slide depicts the application of scheduled preventive maintenance tasks on the cost of ownership of a heating, ventilation, or air conditioning system. Of course, HVAC is an example of a building system critical to support and delivery of education. Note the increasing cost of routine preventative maintenance over an HVAC system life and before it is replaced. The dotted line is where the capital maintenance expenditures should be made to avoid loss of learning space and unnecessary routine maintenance costs. It is important to note that while there is a manufacturer's expected lifespan for every building system, that lifespan can exceed or shorten depending on effectiveness of preventative maintenance. On average, every dollar spent in a timely fashion on preventative maintenance avoids nearly $6 and later reactive maintenance cost. If this resulting $5 saved then are not spent on additional preventative maintenance, they will translate into $25 additional in value. This is known as a virtuous cycle effective preventative maintenance and is the exact opposite of the vicious cycle of reactive maintenance. Effective preventative maintenance is so powerful that the Maryland K-12 facility portfolio will not only fiscally sustainable, otherwise said, affordable over time without taking advantage of it. On the flip side, that nearly every dollar not spent on preventative maintenance can cause $5 of reactive maintenance and or accelerate the need for capital maintenance to replace that system. The $5 savings, dollars not spent when they should have been spent, can then cost $25 in additional dollars of reactive maintenance that then starve preventative maintenance. Again, this is known as the vicious cycle of reactive maintenance, in which the condition of the facility or portfolio rapidly deteriorates and fiscal sustainability is lost. The slide models an example of payment surrounding a building. The cost of preservation work performed during the first 75% of the standard lifespan of the pavement is $2 per unit. If that work is not performed, however, and the condition is allowed to sink to fair or poor, the cost of repair increases to $4 per unit. And if the condition is allowed to deteriorate to the point of failure, the cost jumps to $12 to $16 per unit to rehabilitate the damaged pavement.
We saw that the cost of preventive maintenance in the earlier years of a system's lifespan is much cheaper than reactive maintenance in the later years. So, how are Maryland's facilities doing now? The average Maryland K-12 facility is now 30 years old, and nearly a third of Maryland's 24 school districts have an average facility age that's even higher than 30. This means that the average facility in Maryland is now in the high cost phase of its lifespan. Even with timely and thorough preventive maintenance, systems will eventually exceed their lifespans and fail, causing school districts to shift money from needed preventive maintenance work to replacing systems reactively. Capital maintenance expenditures, also known as systemic projects, are needed. However, they compete with facility renewals and replacements, as well as needed new space to accommodate enrollment growth, which causes the facility portfolio to age even more quickly. A temporary boost in funding for maintenance, even if sizable, cannot push an aging portfolio back into the equilibrium required for fiscal sustainability. We must either have a portfolio size that we can afford or add more annual funding. Otherwise, we will always draw resources from the renewal budget in order to keep all the building systems functional. One of the biggest levers for sustainability is longitudinally comparable data on systems condition that we can use to inform both planning and maintenance. Properly maintaining a facility, and certainly a portfolio of facilities, involve so many different actions that they must be planned out in advance. Every year, each Maryland school district updates its Comprehensive Maintenance Plan, or CMP, which identifies the maintenance procedures, tasks, and objectives over a period of 5 years that are required to keep its facilities in good condition. It is based on the strategy of attaining a high level of accountability by outlining a methodical and measurable approach to maintenance. The CMP shows how maintenance work is funded, staffed, and prioritized for the school district. But just having a plan is not enough. The plan must include the right maintenance activities in the right places at the right times. A computerized maintenance management system, known as a CMMS, is the major tool that LEAs use to manage maintenance. Any school district employee who is given appropriate access may enter a request for maintenance work into the CMMS, and preventive maintenance work orders are pre-scheduled. The CMMS then routes the request as a work order to the appropriate maintenance staff for action. The CMMS manages the work orders, categorizes and accounts for the resources, meaning the money, materials, and staff time that is expended on the work. The CMMS can be used to schedule and generate work orders for the all-important preventive maintenance activities so that they are more likely to be performed on time. We do not currently have standard and comparable measures throughout all of Maryland school districts, and having them would significantly assist our districts. The Workgroup on Educational Specifications has recommended the adoption of the National Council on School Facilities Standard Definitions for Facilities-Related Expenditures. Adopting these in Maryland would be a great step towards obtaining comparable and useful data. Finally, implementing a statewide CMMS would be a great tool and beneficial to all of Maryland's school districts. According to LEA data submitted, first let's take a look at an example of computerized maintenance management system dashboard that presents summary data about the current status of the maintenance activities being undertaken. It supports comparisons of maintenance performance against selected metrics to describe what's being done and not being done and in what timeframes. A good CMMS uses this comparative information to support management by exception so that attention and resources can be applied where they are most effective. A CMMS also produces reports, such as work order aging reports, which show how long it's taking for staff to respond to the maintenance requests. Knowing the percentage of all work orders that are preventive, as well as the age of the work orders, helps show the effectiveness and health of a portfolio's overall maintenance and identifies which facilities are in trouble. According to school district data submitted through the state to the U.S. National Center for Education Statistics, Maryland LEAs together have historically been annually spending an average of 69% of industry standards on maintenance and operations combined. This number includes operations spending, but has been adjusted to exclude the cost of utilities, which are estimated as averaging about 30% of routine maintenance and operations spending. It is inevitable that this underspending over time will have a detrimental effect on the condition of building systems and on the functional lifespans of our facilities. The result is an additional drain on public resources that could be spent on programs, services, and other needs.
In light of this underspending on capital maintenance, it is not surprising that the percentage of state CIP dollars going to replace building systems has been on an upward trend. Between FY 2006 and FY 2019, the percentage has more than doubled. Yes, system replacement costs have been rising, and the total portfolio size has been increasing, but neither has come close to doubling, nor has been a significant decline in local jurisdictions' investments of local funds. The more likely cause of this spending increase is that more building systems are reaching the end of their lives and are requiring replacement. From this, we can tell that the longevity of building systems is declining. Why? Well, it's certainly possible that the build quality of the systems is decreasing, but it's almost certain that the main reason is that as costs have risen and budgets have become leaner, LEAs are no longer investing as much in capital maintenance and so are obtaining shorter lifespans from their systems.
We truly don't know how well we are maintaining our facilities unless we measure our maintenance effectiveness. The IAC is phasing in new facility maintenance assessment tool, FMA, for use in assessing the major components and attributes of each facility that can hinder the proper delivery of educational programs and services, as well as the maintenance system and processes that LEAs are using. The IAC will use the results of the assessments to identify effective and cost-effective maintenance strategies, identify unmet facility needs, benchmark facilities maintenance results, and support continuous improvement, and foster practices that are repeatable, transparent, and accountable. Maintenance effective assessments produce data that can assist LEAs in prioritizing their maintenance resources so that they can maximize education sufficiency, or educational sufficient learning spaces for every student in every seat in every school in Maryland. To support this work, the IAC is doubling the number of assessments per year going forward by adding assessors to its team working with LEAs. We have seen encouraging results at individual schools, but we know we need to enable systemic comparability of maintenance statewide in order to achieve educational sufficiency and fiscal sustainability across the state. We can also obtain significant savings over the long term by identifying LEA's best practices and sharing them widely across the state. This slide represents potential cost avoidance of increasing maintenance effectiveness. The takeaway is that it's just wasteful for our limited funding when we become trapped at the reactive maintenance level.
Ultimately, we all agree we need a healthy, safe, educationally sufficient learning environment for every child in every seat in Maryland. Keeping our facilities educationally sufficient requires that we maintain them. And by measuring our maintenance effectiveness is how we'll improve our level of success. Good measures will also help us estimate the resources needed to do the work properly and how we can do it better. This is all part of getting to fiscal sustainability and educational sufficiency. Now we'll answer unanswered questions, and we'll take them as they come. We'll leave the mic open for another 2 or 3 minutes after the last question received. And if you have any questions after we sign off today, please send them to the address on the slide. And if you have colleagues that were not able to attend today, please send them to our website. We will publish the recording of this webinar and all follow-up questions and our slide deck with our notes. The question is, most maintenance budgets are funded by local operating budgets. Each LEA is funded quite differently based upon county funding. How do we react when counties struggle to get funding adequately? So I'm going to break the question into 2 parts. The operation and routine maintenance absolutely is funded locally. The capital maintenance is funded between the state and the locals, and absolutely the local share is picking up the greatest portion of this. We don't have a clear answer how to get to adequate funding, but the first step is to be able to have comparable measures so that we can demonstrate the need in a repeatable way. And we do believe that the state assessment will provide that through the facility condition index portion of that assessment. as well as being able to share the pluses and minuses, what works and what's not working throughout the state, and ideas of what works in one county for raising the funding level and what is not working so well. We do this by going out and sharing and talking with all of the LEAs, and we've been happy to participate in MABE's conferences and get-togethers with the maintenance people, which is a very productive platform. David, would you have anything more to add to how that we can help identify funding needs and possibly funding sources?
Well, I mean, through our assessments that we do, I believe some of the results of that could help identify some of the needs of preventative maintenance in your school.
And another plus that came out of the Educational Specifications Workgroup is they studied, or at least they discussed a lot about this gap in funding. And there was talk of potentially increasing maintenance funding, even to the point of it being a percentage of the operating budget, similar to what Arkansas has done. The Assessment and Funding Work Group will continue that discussion. That was one of the items that was pushed up to them, and I hope that you can attend and participate in describing that need and your ideas of how it can best be solved. Next question is, does the 69% include people, salaries, and wages? Alex?
Yes, the 69% is a calculation of how much of the dollars spent on all maintenance and operations, and that includes salaries and materials used for maintenance and daily operations. And the number is what results after 30% of the total spending has been subtracted to account for an average of utility costs. And we can see here that Maryland school districts, on average over a 20-year period, have spent approximately $1 billion a year total on operations and routine maintenance. But if we want to pull out utilities, we get down to about $750 million against the standard of 2% of the current replacement value per year for the facilities, and that is 69%. And the cost of that unspent 30% on the routine maintenance is going to come up in shorter lifespans of building systems and more reactive maintenance, and in the long run, increased capital costs.
And I think it's important, as we discussed, that as our building systems age, in other words, we insufficiently spend on capital maintenance, the cost of routine maintenance goes up. In fact, it increases more than it should. We end up wasting dollars that we could have replaced the system. We end up spending more on routine maintenance, trying to make it last longer. It's not a good model, and it's not one that anybody makes by choice. It's a conundrum that we fall within, that is the reactive maintenance vicious cycle that David had talked about. Thank you for your questions. So we'll wait 3 minutes after this last question, or 3 minutes from now, to see if anybody else has questions. And if not, we'll put up our final slide after that 3 minutes. Here's a glance of it, letting you know about the next webinar on August 20th and the work group meeting that is on August the 28th. We've been very pleased with the number of people that are attending these webinars, and thrilled at the number that have gone back and looked at the recordings and looked at the PowerPoint slides. I really hope that you're able to talk to your colleagues, get them informed, and that as many people as possible become participants within this coming assessment and funding work group. Those meetings will also be recorded, televised and recorded, so that you can participate in them. However, and I say participate, it will be through questions that you would send to the participants and the members. It will not have a question and answer column as this particular webinar setup has. We have another 2 minutes to go before we will sign off. Of course, if there's a question come along, we'll restart the clock. Like we said in the last webinar, everybody likes to see the new facility. The ownership of it is something that is a little less visible, and yet it's the one that is the longest lasting and the one that is with us for decades. We have 1 minute left before we sign off for today. Thank you all very much for being with us, and we'll see you for the next webinar, or at least we won't maybe see you, but we hope you participate on August 20th for the next webinar. It has a lot of material in it that is directly going to lead up to that August 28th meeting, where we will present hypothetical models of how we might use all of this data. Thank you.